Welcome to Soltron. This is the video review for the TakaraTomy Kakusei Optimus Primal. Here's a size comparison so you can see he's gigantic. This is kind of the original Optimus Primal. I'll talk about that monstrosity at the end of the video. There you go, he's 8.5 inches tall. And here's the box, kind of a standard window box. Here's his name, it just says Kakusei Optimus Primal, Transformers, Beast. But I think Kakusei, I looked it up, is Awaken. So it's Awaken Optimus Primal, I think is the best translation. And then you get a good CGI shot of him there. And then all his different various modes, and then all the little weapon attachments you can put on him. And then there he is in his robot mode. Alright, and then here's a 360 of him in his robot mode, and he's looking really good. He gives me a lot of those original Optimus Primal vibes. He's missing a lot of those colors, but he still has that kind of feel to him, and I really enjoy that. I have a lot of nostalgia with that character. But one thing I would critique about this, which keeps him from being like a 10 out of 10 awesome looking robot mode, is he looks like a little squished. He's kind of chunkier than like the upcoming leader class version or the YOLO Park are a lot leaner looking. He looks definitely fatter, which is okay, but it definitely comes off in the head sculpt is where it kind of makes a difference. But overall, really great looking robot mode. I'd say this is like an 8. He looks pretty solid. He looks good. And let's get a good look at that head sculpt. So you can see he's got these piercing green eyes, which is pretty good color contrast. Like he needed some color. But somehow the head just looks a little bit off, doesn't it? It looks like it's a little bit, it's kind of long looking, and then the battle mask just looks a little bit wrong. It's not quite right. So I don't know, something about the proportions is just not working out quite right compared to like the movie version or the studio series, which I think is going to have an awesome head. And then of course he's got a face swapping gimmick, so you just open up his helmet and then you get this kind of looking head. And again, this I think actually looks a little bit better. I kind of prefer this kind of look for him. But one thing I really liked about this movie design is that he kind of looks a lot like Batman, but it doesn't really come across in this version of the figure for some reason. And then he's got like these interesting, like a little bit softer than black, kind of black plastic going to him. And then he's got like some gunmetal and then silver accents here and there, but there's really not a lot of color going on except for in his weapon systems. So for accessories, he's got these two swords, and they're decent. They're a little bit floppy. They're not rubber. These are definitely plastic. They're just like a thin plastic, especially here. Like that's not a good place for them to have channeled out plastic. They should have left that plastic there because he does feel a little bit wobbly, unfortunately. And then of course his two weapons can peg together, so you can get like a dual blade. And then you open up the fingers and just slide that in. And his fingers actually are load bearing. His fingers are what actually hold these in place and keep them from twisting around. So his fingers are kind of strong, but you do need to press on them to get the friction. So that's kind of like, I'm actually a little bit disappointed by that engineering. I'm very surprised because this is kind of old fashioned, because most figures nowadays, they just make this piece would have just had like a little hook in it. So you'd actually just have to slide the weapon in, and then the fingers actually wouldn't need to hold it. But this is kind of like old fashioned engineering where the fingers actually do need to hold it. But anyway, he can pull off a lot of good poses with this. He's got good posability. And the other gimmick that he has, the other accessories, is he's got these push button missiles. So you actually just push them from the back and they fire out like a very tiny distance. They're not spring loaded like the original. And then these missiles are very weird. They look like they're covered in fur. Maybe that's supposed to be fire or something, but then they should have gone with a different color. Like it looks like maybe tar missiles. Yeah, it's kind of not a great look. And then I guess you can hold these in his hands if you want him to like bang on a drum or something. But yeah, for articulation, he's got this like universal joint neck, so he can do a good amount of looking around. He can get a good up pose. He can't get any down at all because there's just all this in the way. So he cannot look down, unfortunately. He does have like his shoulder pauldrons, and he's got universal universal shoulders. So he's going to go all the way around and then almost all the way out. And then he does have about, actually this is way more than 90 degrees on the elbow. And he's got, unfortunately, this kind of ugly elbow leftover joint that they should have filled out a little bit better. But he's got more than 90 degrees on the elbow, which is nice. So you can get some good articulation. He's got wrist swivel, which goes around all the way 360. And then he's got double joints on the fingers. So he's got this initial joint, and then he's got the pointer finger joint, and it's got the letter R on there, so you can remember what hand goes to what. But yeah, these feel pretty good. I don't think they're going to break at all, and they're not rubber at all. So they're nice, good plastic all around. No rubber on this guy, which I appreciate. And then he's got, of course, his bicep swivel, and then he's got a waist swivel, which he needs for transformation anyway. And then he's got ratcheted hips, and then outward motion pretty much all the way. And then he's got like a hip swivel or a thigh swivel there, and he's got a knee swivel. So he's got double swivel there. So these actually kind of move independently in a way, which is kind of an odd choice. And then he's got 90 degrees, actually more than 90 on the knees too. So very nice articulation there. His hip kibble is going to get in the way a little bit of getting his legs all the way in front, but you can get some good like crouching poses out of him. So you can get some really good action poses. It's not really much of an issue. He's very nice to pose. He feels very good. And then you've got really great ankle swivel, and then no pivot forward and backwards, which is not really needed. Actually, it feels like he's got something there. He's got a little bit, my mistake. So he's got like a little bit of pitch on his ankles. But yeah, he's got excellent articulation. It's really easy to get his ankles or his feet nice and solid on the ground, so you can get off really excellent posing out of him. He just feels really good in hand. And then of course he's got these forearm launcher gimmicks. So you just push those down, and that covers it up in this patch of fur. And then on the opposite side you have a button, and you just push that, and that makes his forearm gun pop out. And then his shoulder missiles, you can just open up his backpack here, and then these have a double joint, and you can just press those all the way into his back, and then close them back up again. Oh, actually he's also got like these panel fillers here, so you just rotate those. And now his shoulder missiles are nicely packed away, and now he's like in a relaxed mode, which looks pretty cool. And then you can even see the launchers actually stick out a little bit. They kind of look like thrusters, sort of like you're an original figure. It would be cool if they worked in some thrusters here, because this panel does a whole lot of nothing. So it would be cool if they had one little extra gimmick where you had like rocket thrusters here, so you could just like have jump jets. But I guess you can pretend that these will do that. And then his missiles are not going to fit in here. Well, actually, nope, I take that back. His missiles do fit in here while they're in storage mode. So that's pretty good. So that's nice that they worked that in, and it just barely has the clearance there. So yeah, they definitely planned for that. And I guess maybe that's why they have like a flame effect, so you can pretend that they're like his little jump jets. So yeah, just if these were a different color, this would actually be a kind of cool effect. And then they don't move while they're stored though, unfortunately. But yeah, really, really fun figure. He just gives me all that nostalgia from getting this guy. I remember when these guys came out that Christmas, I was just asking for him and Megatron. And this kind of like marks the beginning of where I started getting back into Transformers, was Beast Wars. Where I got into it a little bit. I really liked him and Megatron were my favorite, but it wasn't until like Armada and the Unicron trilogy that I seriously started collecting Transformers again. But yeah, so I have a lot of nostalgia for this guy. I still clearly remember that Christmas. But yeah, he's also got these ports for like where you can just plug on weapons and things. It's kind of weird. Some of these ports stick out a lot, like his forearm ports and his back port stick out like way more than they should. It would be nice if he had some more back ports because there's not much else going on back here. But yeah, great figure, excellent quality. He's a 10 out of 10. Everything feels so good. The fit and finish, everything feels pretty excellent on this guy. So I really do enjoy these kinds of robots. But anyway, for transforming him, the easiest thing to do is kind of rotate his waist, and you can the missiles will kind of get in the way a little bit, but not too much. You rotate his waist, and then you're going to get this whole backpack, and it's got a double joint. And you just kind of hinge that the best you can. Oh yeah, and I forgot to show off his swords. There's these slots right here on his backpack, and they can just slot right there on his back, so he can just basically reach over and he can pretty much grab them. He's like a little bit off. It's like a couple millimeters off from actually being able to reach them, but he's almost there, and he's not going to be able to reach across his shoulder to get it. Yeah, it's too far for his arm, but it almost looks like he can actually reach them. That's pretty cool. But anyway, we'll take those off for transformation. And then you're just going to fold up his knee all the way. And then you just get his arms in the forward position. Oh, and then I forgot to mention he does have like this butterfly joint, which is a nice addition. It doesn't really do much. And then I think for an ape, they actually crawl on their first knuckle. So he should actually have his fingers out a little bit, technically. And then all that's left to do is just switch out his head and chest. So you're going to open up his chest panel, and then you just rotate that around. And this is actually like a pretty good looking robot chest anyway. The chests, I wish they looked a little bit more different. They look kind of similar in a way, probably just because of the paint scheme. And then you just rotate this part out just like the Kingdom version. And you're going to rotate his beast head out. And then one thing I was having trouble with is this joint is very stiff, and you actually have to pop it all the way back like that. Otherwise his head won't fit back into his chest. So it has to be like that angle. And then you close everything back up. I don't know, something getting in the way. Oh, it's this missile got caught on his hip skirt. All right, and there he is in his beast mode. And yeah, this beast mode is really impressive. I think this is just so much better than the original figure. This just destroys it. He's so cool looking. He just looks so brutal, and his face really gives me that Unique Toys Lockdown vibe. It looks just like the Unique Toys, the colors, because he has green eyes and this black face. But yeah, he looks really vicious. This is just such a great alt mode. And he's got most the articulation you would expect, of course. But one thing he cannot do, yeah, he's just so expressive. I really love the way this guy looks. And it's nice that he has a moving head. Is he can sort of do his two-legged, stand on his two leg. Like this looks pretty good. But then his head cannot move down at all because this collar, all this collar sculpt just gets in the way of his jaw, so he actually cannot look straight. This is like the best you can get for him standing on two legs, and then you could like pound his chest, I guess, sort of. But that's unfortunate. They should have planned this a little bit better, where he could have actually stood on two legs and pound his chest. Like that's kind of an important thing. If you're making an ape robot, like that's something they need to be able to do. Oh yeah, and one more thing, his robot feet, you do need to flip those up so those unclip. And they just flip up right there to kind of clean up his ape feet a little bit more. So here he is with basically his Kingdom counterpart. You can see is significantly smaller. And then this is basically the size of the original leader class Optimus Primal. Yeah, we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, This great figure. Highly recommend it if you're into like this gimmick kind of figure. He's definitely not going to scale with anything. He's just like his own scale. He's kind of like an MP kind of Optimus Primal. Yeah, I highly recommend that. I got it on Amazon Japan. It was about $86 after shipping, so it's pretty pricey considering like the actual price of this guy. Half of it I paid in shipping pretty much, because I think domestically he's basically like $45 was the Amazon price, and then another 40 for shipping. But I think he's kind of worth it. I do miss chunky robots like this. But yeah, that's pretty much the end of the review, and then I'm going to talk about this guy for about 5 minutes if you want to stick around. Okay, so let me explain. This was actually, I started working on this custom about when the Masterpiece Optimus Primal came out, and he was like $200 for a Voyager size figure. I just didn't want to pay that, so I thought I would just kind of make my own with some stylistic differences. And of course, he's obviously not finished. He's got a lot of gaps in him, but basically this is how he would have kind of looked in ape mode. His face is kind of horrifying, but I was trying to make him have like a more savage face, so I was giving him teeth and things, and he would have an opening and closing mouth, which is like one thing the gimmick figure didn't have. And then I had to like narrow his face a little bit because it was kind of, the proportions on the original face just aren't very good. So I wanted to make him have an authentic ape mode. And keep in mind, this was like way before Kingdom Optimus Primal came out, which kind of made me completely lose interest in this project. But yeah, I really liked how his shoulders kind of like fold forward, because like an ape's shoulders are kind of like rolled up here instead of like down here. They should be like up here looking like this. And then I gave him like these Beast Machines Optimus Primal fingers and toes. So he's a monstrosity, I'll admit. There was a lot that needed to be done. But basically the way he would have transformed is kind of the same way, but without the gimmicks in his chest. This whole panel would have basically rotated, so his robot head would be down here, and then it would rotate up, and his robot chest would like kind of rotate up with it. So that was kind of the plan I had, to just like to make his transformation a little bit more interesting. So this would all rotate up, and then his chest would also be attached to that, so his chest would come up. And then the gorilla head and gorilla chest would end up on the back, and the gorilla head would be down here in this section pretty much. And then of course you just rotate the hips around. Basically same transformation, and then his gorilla toes just fold up, kind of hide out a little bit back here. And then this was like my new improved stylistic kind of Optimus Primal. And the thing I really wanted to work on was giving him like these really savage forearms that look like they could just like smack the face off of pretty much anything. So I think he accomplished that pretty well. But yeah, you can see he's unfinished, but I think you can also see he had some potential. But like I said, after the Kingdom Optimus Primal came out, I just completely lost interest in this guy, especially because he's not going to scale with anything. But yeah, I think he had some things going for him, and he still has his little hidden mace weapon in here, so I like that. His gun arm is totally disabled though, so let's take a look at that. And then yeah, another thing I should confess is I had 2 Optimus Primals that I destroyed to make this guy. So I think I'll still finish him someday, but with these new Optimus Primal figures, I'm just not that interested. And then here was like his original gun arm, which was like a really cool gimmick from the original toy. And then I guess while we're comparing things, here's like the shoulder cannons. Like his proportions look a little bit awkward now, but I think especially with his shoulder cannons deployed, he would look a lot cooler. And then yeah, these shoulder cannons, the original ones are just so weird looking. They look kind of like veiny or Geiger-esque. They look kind of like aliens. Yeah, they just look very uncomfortable compared to like the new shoulder cannons, which have a much more mechanical feel compared to like this biomechanical look. The last thing I'll talk about is let's just compare like his new swords compared to his original teensy swords. Like there's just no comparison. Like the new ones just look so much cooler, and you can't even tell which side's the front on these old ones. But yeah, the new ones just blow them away. It's a huge difference. You can see these even look a little puny in his original robot hand. But anyway, that's this guy. Maybe someday you'll see a video of him, and someday he'll be finished, hopefully. All right, well, see you in the next one. And then don't remember to check out eBay and buy those robots I listed.